Hey everyone, this is Dr. Steve Orma, and today I want to answer a question from a viewer. And this question is from Alfonso Sanchez. And his question is, since the body has a great ability to adapt, can my body get used to sleeping very few hours if I'm restricting sleep for a long time and then not be able to sleep the hours I need to physically repair myself? For how long can the sleep restriction technique be used, especially if it is complemented with the 30-30 rule? Okay, so what essentially Alfonso is asking here is he has a concern that when he practices what he's calling sleep restriction, that because the body has the ability to adapt, or if the body has the ability to adapt, won't his body then just be trained or learn to sleep less hours? And then like it gets stuck in that place where it's like now the body is only able to sleep, a restricted number of hours because he's been sleeping in that way for a while and the body has adapted. So there's like a worry or a concern here. So the short answer to this is no. Like it's not going to train the body to permanently sleep less time. But really, like this is the answer here is that first of all, if you have insomnia, your body is already sleeping less hours by definition. You're either having trouble falling asleep, staying asleep, or both, or you're waking up early in the morning and not able to get back to sleep. And so you're already sleeping less than the optimal number of hours. Now that's going to vary between people. It might be, you're averaging 1 or 2 hours. It might be you're averaging 6 hours. But let's say normally you're sleeping 7, 8, or 9 hours. So you're already, when you have insomnia, you're already sleeping less hours. And in that sense, your sleep is restricted, but it's restricted by the insomnia. But that doesn't mean now you're stuck at that number of hours, just because you've been sleeping, less hours for months or even years. That's not the way it works. But really, so that's the first thing that I think is important to know here is to realize when you have insomnia and you're starting the process of overcoming insomnia, which I've described here, the process, the treatment for it, you're already sleeping less hours. Your sleep number of hours is already restricted. You're not starting out at 7 or 8 hours and then we're like, making it less than that. But to answer the question directly here, sleep restriction, which is the term normally used in CBTI, cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, which is the treatment essentially that is the gold standard for insomnia. And it's the treatment basically that I use with my clients, although I've enhanced it and made some changes to it, involves something that usually is called sleep restriction. Now, I don't call it sleep restriction, partly because of this question that Alfonso is raising and his worry and concern, because we're not actually restricting the sleep. We never restrict the sleep when you're trying to overcome insomnia. So let's say someone comes to me and they're averaging 5 hours. Okay, some people might be sleeping less or averaging less, some might be more. Let's say they're averaging 5 hours of sleep and they want to overcome the insomnia, and let's say they used to sleep 8 hours. So they're sleeping 5 hours less than they normally, or 3 hours less than they normally sleep. Now, when we implement what I call sleep scheduling, because we're never actually restricting your sleep. It's called sleep scheduling, meaning we're creating a structure around your sleep, your bedtime, your wake-up time, how much time you're in the bed. It's always based on your individual pattern of sleep, including how long you've been averaging. That's one of the key numbers we look at is we get 7 days of baseline data using a sleep log. So we know exactly what the pattern of your sleep is currently. And we look at what you've been averaging in terms of hours per night. And we also look at something called your sleep efficiency. And based on these numbers, based on the data, we create a sleep schedule for you. So how that works is, let's say you're averaging 5 hours. The schedule we would create for you generally would start out at least at 6 hours. So we're always adding at least an hour extra on top of what you've been averaging, meaning what your body is been able to sleep over the past week. And then we're adding an hour to that. So we're not restricting. Restricting would be you've been sleeping 5 hours, so now let's only give you 4 hours in the bed. Or even giving you 5 hours in the bed, which would still be restricting it because it doesn't give you any extra time to fall asleep or fall back asleep if you wake up. So we're giving you some breathing room with that schedule. And in the first week, and sometimes even 2, we're not even lowering that amount of time that you're in bed even that much, because a lot of times people are coming in, they're averaging 5 hours of sleep, let's say, but they're actually spending 8 hours in the bed because that's what they used to do. But 3 hours of that time is they're not sleeping, and that is one thing that's feeding the insomnia. So in that case, we wouldn't go right down to 6 hours. We'd go down just an hour, usually to about 7 hours. So now you have 7 hours and you've only been sleeping 5. Do you see how we're not restricting your sleep? All we're doing is lowering the amount of time you're spending in bed based on what you've been averaging. What you're actually capable of sleeping now, naturally, is 5 hours. And our goal is to get you back up to where you were. But to do that, we're lessening the time you're in the bed because that increases what's called your sleep efficiency. That's how we strengthen your sleep system. And then that's what ultimately is going to break the pattern. But we're never going below what you've been averaging. So let's say we do that for the first week, right? We give you 6 to 7 hours in bed, even though you've only been averaging 5. And then we do that for a week. And then we look at your data for the next week, and then you slept 5.5 hours. Well, cool. What we're going to do is we're going to actually add time on to your schedule. We're going to add 30 minutes to that schedule. And we're going to keep doing that all the way through. So it's dynamic. It changes. We don't just, at the beginning say, okay, now you're going to have a 6-hour window in bed because you've been averaging 5 hours, and then we never change it. Right? Because as your sleep gets better, as you start to progress and improve, as you're going through this process, we start to add more time to that window ultimately. Okay? So we never actually go below. So the key points here are we're never restricting sleep. We're only lessening the amount of time you're spending in the bed based on what you've been averaging, based on what your body is naturally sleeping at that current time. And then once we get your sleep efficiency back, once you're able to start sleeping longer within that window, and your sleep efficiency, which is actually the amount of time that you're sleeping in the bed, we want that percentage to be at a certain level. Now we know you're actually your sleep system is stronger, and we know you're able to fill out the amount of time that we're giving you. And once we see that, then we can add more time. And we just keep adding more time every week, as long as you're actually filling out the time. Meaning you're actually sleeping during the amount of time that we're giving you, or sleeping during a significant portion of it. And when we see that, then we know that the insomnia is starting to break. Your sleep system's getting stronger. You're now starting to be able to sleep longer, and therefore we can give you more time in the bed. So your body we never restrict your sleep below what you've been averaging. And then once you actually start increasing the amount that you're sleeping, following this process and structure, and this might take several weeks, this doesn't normally just take people 1, 2, 3 weeks. It takes several weeks to get to this point where we break the insomnia, we get your sleep efficiency stronger, where you start, where it starts going on like an upswing, where it's progressing in a positive direction. And then do we slowly start to add more time to the window, and until we get you back to where you were before, or even better sometimes. Okay, so that hopefully answers the question that you're never going to get stuck in like sleeping a certain amount of hours because we're lessening your sleep window, and we're never actually restricting the amount of time that you're in bed below what you've been averaging, what you're actually capable of now. We're just trimming off the fat, giving you plenty of opportunity to sleep, but we're also making it so we can squeeze out the insomnia and strengthen your sleep system in order to then over time eventually add more and more time back to get you back to where you were. Okay? All right, so hopefully that answers your question, Alfonso. And if you found this video helpful, just press the like button, and you can also subscribe to the channel. And if you have any questions or comments, you can leave them below. I read all the comments and the questions, and if there's a question that I think would be good for a video, then I'll do a video as well for you. So hope you have a good rest of your week, and I will see you next time.